So, Tim Brunauer, and thank you very much for being on this episode of the podcast. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Cool.
Because I know you've got the social media agency running, and there's a very interesting story on that, which is the reason why you're here, because this is all about bringing entrepreneurs together and building a platform for each other. So, Tim Brunauer, what's your story?
Okay, so Ignatious, thanks so much for having me. It's a big pleasure and opportunity to be here. So, yeah, I think I have a long story. I'll give you the abbreviated version.
Yeah.
I started off as a photographer.
Yeah.
I was very interested in photography during school.
Okay.
So when I was in grade 10, we had really long holidays, and my parents told me, you're not just going to sit around at home, so figure something out, but you got to go do something. So I emailed a whole bunch of local businesses that were within my interests, and one of them was a photography studio called Studio 77. It used to belong to a very well-known photographer called Tony Figuera, and they got back to me and said, sure, you can come and kind of spend your holiday with us and we'll take you around. And I was his lackey. I was just carrying gear, tripods, everything. So I enjoyed it so much that at the end of the holiday, I asked him, can I stay? Can I come in after school hours? And so basically for the whole of my grade 11 and 12 year, I would go and work there in the afternoons.
Yeah.
And slowly I would get jobs from him and I would do shoots on his behalf. And I really learned so much from him. So all of my photography knowledge and the foundation of my photography started there. So what happened was, unfortunately, a year after I finished school, I carried on working with him and he got ill. So he had to move, and he moved to Swakop and he kind of scaled down. But I kept on doing shoots for him here in Windhoek. And after that, he basically, he gave me some of his clients, and unfortunately his health deteriorated and he unfortunately passed away. So that meant I was on my own. I had to go and I had to freelance. So I started shooting. I had the opportunity to shoot for a couple of ad agencies, and I started seeing that there's this little gap in the market where advertising agencies were doing these really cool creative shoots, but only for companies and businesses that could afford their big retainers.
Yeah.
And the smaller businesses were kind of trying to get out there on social media, but business owners with a phone without any real knowledge weren't doing great jobs. So we actually had one or two of my private clients come to me and ask, do I know if somebody can help manage their content, manage their pages? So I said, you know what, I'll do it for you. I've got YouTube, I can go and check out how to do it. And I started with about 2 or 3 accounts, and I kind of saw this was going to work. And as a photographer, most photographers will know, and creatives in the industry, if you're a freelancer, your income's up and down.
Yeah.
It comes in waves. You've got bad months, you've got good months, but really bad months knock you hard. So I wanted more sustainable income. And with the social media work, it was more on a retainer basis. So every month you have a certain amount of content you have to shoot, you have to post, you have to keep the accounts active. So that really worked. And I reached out to Benny, who was a friend of mine, and he was also getting into video, and I said, look, if we team up, we can really start something good here.
Yeah.
And that was the start of Nuka. We were working from coffee shops, we literally cold called, we went knocking on doors, and that's how we built up our client base. There was a cafe called Cafe Prestige. Recently they closed their doors, but they started off at Freedom Plaza in town, and that was our office. They had amazing avo sandwiches and really great coffee, and we'd have our client meetings there, we'd have our interviews there, and that's really where we started our hustle. So that was how Nuka was born, basically.
Okay, perfect. So you and your partner went on to build, it's safe to say, one of the most successful social media agencies currently in Namibia. Do you agree with that?
That would be a reach.
Yeah.
I think we're doing pretty well, but I don't like to compare myself to other agencies. I think within the advertising space, there's a big variety of work that one can do. Some agencies specialize more in digital, some agencies specialize more in PR work. We're kind of a one-stop shop, but I would say we've been able to grow very sustainably over a long period of time. Long being about 4 or 5 years. So where we are now, I'd say we've been able to stabilize really well. We've got a good client base. We're by no means one of the biggest agencies. I mean, the advertising agency, traditional agency is still way bigger than us.
Yeah.
But I think in the social media space, we've become a very consistent, reliable service provider. And because of that, I'd say, I think in our niche market and the kind of like target market we're trying to hit, we've kind of gotten to the spot where we want to be. Obviously, we still have lots of room to grow, and we've got lots of ambition with that. But yeah, where we are now, we're very proud of where we've gotten.
Okay, so interesting, because I think what I also want to know is you've gone through this journey with your partner. It's been the two of you. And a lot of people are very much against partnerships, but I like to see that sometimes partnerships work well, especially when two people are completely the opposite of whatever they are. And would you agree with that? How would you say your partnership has really helped what you guys are building right now?
Okay, very interesting question. So I think this is one where a lot of people will have varying opinions, also based on their experience. But I could never have gotten to where I am, and Nuka could never have gotten to where it is without my partner. You know, without both of us being there, it would definitely not have worked.
I hope he's listening now.
And it was interesting. We were recently in a meeting with a lawyer, and we were opening a new CC, and the lawyer was like, you know, opening a business together, CC for example, it's more difficult to get out of a CC than out of a marriage.
Really?
So be careful with who you choose. And it's very true, because you need to have a really good symbiotic relationship. You have to complement each other. Both Benny and I are very aligned in terms of our thinking, our decision making, but our personalities are very different. And we've been able to manage to work together in a really amazing way, in that I can honestly say we've never had any major disagreements. We always make decisions together. We sit down, we talk it out, we come to a point, we make a decision, we move ahead. So I would say when it comes to a business, having two people, or at least two people involved, gives you a lot of strength, because also if you're down the one day, the other guy can be there to lift you up, to carry the weight. And then sometimes if, you know, because of circumstances, you have to leave the office for a project, or they have to leave the office, there's always somebody there who can man and who can represent the business. So in that sense, it was really good and important for us to work together. But I can also see how having the wrong business partner can destroy the business, because if you're pulling into opposite directions, or you have different goals or visions, the business won't work. And that is also a big reason why businesses fail. You know, I've heard of lots of bad instances where people just had the wrong business partners, and it was detrimental. So I think if you choose the right partner, it can definitely only benefit your business. But making that choice is a gamble. It's a tough one, and you need to know each other well.
Okay. And what are some things about yourself now that you've learned getting into the entrepreneurship space that you didn't know about yourself, and you think this has really toughened me up or taught me to be this way? And
okay, so I think in terms of growing as a person, I'm an introvert. And I'm not somebody who likes being the center of attention. I don't like having to go cold call. I don't like having to put myself in those situations, because I'm uncomfortable. But what I've learned is by forcing myself, I've been able to grow and become a lot more confident. And now I have no problem walking into a meeting and, you know, having to pitch, having to present, having to go through a discussion with an entire board of a company, which in the past would have intimidated me a lot. So being put in those situations allows you to come out of your shell, and it allows you to have confidence in what you say and what you do. I think if you have a product and if you have a knowledge base that really allows you to, you know, believe in what you're doing, obviously it's completely different if you're trying to sell rubbish. But if you really believe in your product, and if you are able to confidently back what you're saying, that helps you grow in confidence. And that's really helped me. So I would have never seen myself being able to do some of these things, but having to be forced into doing them and just knuckling down and knowing if you don't do this, you're not going to get the job, you're not going to get the work. Being forced to do that really has made me grow.
Okay. And would you say it's something maybe that comes more from, it looks very, very big, but once you step in, it's only an inch deep, so a centimeter or whatever it is. But so from trying things, you realize how not necessarily easy, but how you were just, everything was in your mind and it's easier than you thought it would be. Is that it? So would you say it came from you constantly trying, and then with each time that you try, you realize you get better at trying? Would you say that's what's built your confidence as well?
Definitely, most definitely. Because if you haven't tried something before, the fear of not knowing really can be quite overwhelming. But as you said, if you actually go and attempt it, often you realize it's not as bad as you've made it out to be. And that goes the same for failure, because people are afraid of failing. But if you do not fail, you will not grow. And if you just keep on going, you learn from your mistakes. Now, often you don't want to learn from your mistakes. No one wants to fail. But if you do, it gives you an opportunity to go back, do like a post-mortem on what happened, where did I go wrong, fix it and learn. Then you're kind of, it's bad for you, you're not growing. So it is important that you also go back and analyze, okay, what should I do differently this time? And that will then help you move forward. So yes, it's through lots of attempts, lots of rejection, lots of trying and trying again, that has helped us to get here.
Okay. And tell me now, I want to dig a little bit deeper into you as a person. What's a very challenging moment that you've experienced in your life that you would say, this definitely changed the way I see things, or it affected me a lot and it was really tough to come out of?
I think as a person who is running their own business, whether you're a freelancer, whether you're running a business with employees, that moment when the money doesn't come in when you think it's going to come in, you need to realize the risks as an individual who is trying to run their business. There will be times when unexpected events occur and you need to learn to adapt to survive. So we've been in the position a lot of times where we've had big projects and you expect a certain amount of money to come in, you've kind of calculated that money will be there and you've already planned ahead, and then something happens and it just doesn't land. And then you have to make a plan. You need to hustle extra hard. You need to go and find those extra jobs to cover their expenses. And that can be very stressful. Also, if you are not just on your own, I'm married. So if you're a family man, if you have to provide for your family, that can put a lot of strain on you, on your relationship as well. So you need to prepare yourself and you need to be able to act calmly and with intention. My personality type is such that I like to work under pressure. So with everything since school assignments, I would wait till like the last minute to complete it. But I was able to perform really well under pressure. So when there is stress, when there is pressure, I don't make a lot of mistakes. Generally, obviously everyone makes mistakes, but I'm able to cope with it. So because of that, I put myself in these scenarios of stress, but those stress I think are good because you're kind of like your fight or flight instinct comes in as a human, and you kind of sometimes can even like squeeze a little bit more performance out there. But over prolonged periods of time, stress can break you down as an individual, physically, mentally. You get to a point you can burn out, and no one wants that. And that is dangerous for you as a person, just for your general health and well-being. You need to also have that balance. Everyone speaks about work-life balance. As an entrepreneur, as somebody who runs their own business, forget about it. But you have to try and manage it. You have to kind of like, you have to keep it under control. So where you can alleviate stress, try and do so.
And I think the way I see it is that stress is just part of the experience, part of. So I feel like you probably will end up feeling more stressed if you see stress as a bad thing. But if you're more like, it's just part of it. I mean, it's like if you want to get better at doing push-ups, your body has to go through the pain of doing more push-ups, and it's the same here. If you want to achieve more, you have to go through the pain of doing more.
If you put your body under strain, same as doing workouts, without that strain, it doesn't grow. But if you overstrain it,
Yeah.
you can hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So it's that balance, and that is the challenge. It's not about removing stress from your life, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And as you said, you need to accept it.
Yeah.
You need to be able to operate within the parameters of having that stress. But where you can, alleviate unnecessary stress, because that is what will pile up on you.
Okay. But now let's talk about your marriage, because I really want to know. I'm a young guy myself, and I'm always so curious about people that finally get to a point where they're like, you know what, I want to live with you for as long as we can live together.
Sure.
That's
And
nice.
I've always kind of made my mind up and then decided on something. I don't believe in changing your mind halfway through. I believe if you commit to something, you have to go. It's also like with the business that we started, I'm too stubborn to let it fail, you know? So I had this goal of doing this, I'm gonna complete it. And when it came to getting married, I very quickly realized that Tammy was the one.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to, if you have any grain of uncertainty, don't get married, first wait. Because you need to understand the person, you need to know who the person really is. And you need to be able to live with that person being the way they are, because everyone is different, and you need to realize that both of you can mold each other to an extent, but you also need to live with each other's imperfections and so on. So for myself, I got to the point where I understood, no, Tammy is going to be the one. And so because of that, I didn't see a point of overextending the dating period, overextending, you know, waiting. And so I said, no, I'm gonna call it. And yeah.
How old were you when you got married?
21.
Oh shit! What?
Yeah.
I'm turning 21 this month, in a few days actually. So maybe, I could learn a thing or two from this.
No, but
that takes a lot of not determination. You probably were very sure, huh?
Yeah, no, I was. And the thing is, what is nice as well is it also helps motivate you as an individual, because if you're no longer living just for yourself, but for the two of you, it's something beautiful. So it helps you also build a life together. And I think there's a lot to be said about waiting before getting married, because you get to have more life experiences by yourself, you get to understand yourself a bit better, but at the same time, you also start getting set in your ways. Whereas if you're younger, both of you can grow together, and you kind of are still both agile and flexible enough to compromise. Whereas a lot of older people who get married, they start clashing on certain things because they're just not willing to compromise anymore.
That makes sense.
For us, it really worked well. And I think, again, it's very much person to person. You need to know, you need to be sure, because again, like I said, I don't believe in going back on what you said, and marriage is a sacred thing. So once you commit, you got to commit.
That makes sense, because I was listening to a marriage coach earlier, actually today, funny thing, and he was saying something about a lot of relationships fail also because, like, when you're two people, you have to be giving the other person what they crave, not what you want to give, but what they need. So maybe they like to play a little bit more volleyball. It's now you showing up for the other person in the way that they need and they want you to show up. It's no longer about I want this, so it has to be done like this. But rather than now we have a plate at the table. I put some chicken, you put some vegetables and whatever, and together you make a full dish or whatever it is. Would you agree with that?
100%. You obviously you need to take into consideration your partner at all times, and as you said, different people need different things. And it's important that you also understand that before you commit to a long-term relationship. You know, so once you understand what that person needs and you're willing to commit yourself to helping them with that and giving them that, then it will definitely succeed. But if you kind of go into a relationship and think, no, you know, stay self-centered about it, a lot of people, I think it's human nature to also act upon our own interests. You know, we're all kind of born with this innate selfishness where we want to gratify ourselves, but when you're in a relationship, you have to work past that and you have to understand it's not about you in this relationship, it's about the partner.
Yeah.
And as you said, you have to give them what they need, and that will help you be successful. And then again, if you work on being good about compromising, because there will never be a perfect scenario. If she wants to play volleyball and you want to go play soccer and it's both at the same time, someone has to compromise. So is she going to compromise? Are you going to compromise? When are you going to compromise? And being able to understand that in the long term helps you also grow, and obviously both parties benefit from a compromising spirit. So you need to make sure that balance is there. But life is about balance. You need to keep it in check, and I think it's important to meditate on that as well.
Okay. Do you think there's like a formula to getting successful in many things that you do? Because the reason why I'm asking is because I'm starting to get more and more of a feeling of like, sometimes a lot of us, we don't really know how something is going to turn out. Of course, there are the things you can control and the things you can't control. I mean, you can control how many videos you post on this podcast. You can control which cameras you use, but you can't really control how many people will come to watch, how many people will enjoy it, how many people will find it useful and all that. It's the same with, like, I don't know, the marriage that you spoke about. You can only control what you put into it and how you show up for your partner, but you can't control how they respond to it. So, and all that. So do you think there's like a formula, or is it just a thing of like, the more you try things, the more you just, I don't know, get something out of it?
I think in life, there is definitely a formula of what you need to do to have a certain amount of success. But success is not a specific constant that you're working towards, because everyone's success looks different. Personally, I'm a Christian, so I believe in the Bible, and in the Bible there are lots of principles which you can apply to your life that help you lead a successful life. Now, success might not mean getting rich or, you know, always being happy, but having joy. There's a difference between joy and happiness, right? And being joyful and being content with your life revolves around ticking a couple of boxes. And if you live in line with some of those things, it will help you in general have success, because you'll just generally be more happy about how you go about your life, how you treat other people, how you interact. And a lot of those principles, if you apply throughout your life, from being married to business, you'll receive the benefits from doing that. So I think a lot of it is trial and failure, you know, trying here, trying there, succeeding, failing. But a lot of it is as well living by certain code. And if you are willing to commit to that code, then you will also be more successful as a person. Obviously, there's a lot to be said about people who are completely ruthless and are willing to do everything to succeed. I think for them, you also see that being committed to something and driven to achieve something says a lot about being successful, and that there's a certain amount that one can learn from that. But at the same time, it's lonely at the top, you know, and there's a lot of those kind of people that are very unhappy because of how they've gotten to their position. So I think if you want to live a happy, balanced life and be successful as a person here on earth in general, in your community, then there is a certain code that if you live by it, it will help you in general.
What are some of your core values that you have now at this point in your life that you think are definitely helping you out in the way you live life?
Okay, cool. So I think number one, honesty. You gotta be honest with your partner, with business, with whoever you work with. If you go into a business transaction and you're not honest, either because you're over-promising something that you can't deliver on, or you're pretending to be somebody that you're not, whatever the case is, it's not gonna be success. So you need to be honest. And the same goes for if things go wrong. Being honest in your business dealings and with the people you're working with will go a long way in you retaining their trust. And business is built on trust. Because if you have trust, whether it is in the marketplace, in the community, between individuals, that trust will help you and your business grow, because people will talk about their trust with you. they'll go to the next guy who they know or friend of theirs and say, you know what, I really trust them. They will sort you out. Or, you know what, a project went south with them, but they were fully honest with me. They did their best to work around it. They came up with plans. So I think honesty is a core value of mine. I think in terms of putting your whole soul into everything you do. You know, if you commit to doing something, do it with your whole heart and your whole soul, you know, because in that way you're not going into something half-hearted. If you're only in with one foot, there's no way you're going to succeed at it. So again, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in your business, whether it is going to play sport, just commit. Go in with all of your effort, and at the end of the day, even if you don't exceed 100% your expectation, you can be happy with yourself that you've put in everything you can. So I think those are two important ones. I can probably go on for a long time.
But core values are basically it's the way you live your whole life. So it basically comes to every little decision you have to make. But I think a nice one as well that I've really added to my core values is to judge things after I've tried them and not before, or not any time. Just try it first and then judge it afterward. Because it's like how you spoke about people as we get older, we get set in our ways and all that. And I think it kind of prohibits us from doing some things that are beneficial for us. And if you try to at least do things before judging them at all, just try it out. You never know what turns out from it, and I think that's also one way to live life, and it's very important. But now I have another question, and it's coming back to your marriage again, because now I just realized, okay, I have this strong belief that for guys, it's very important to have a stage where they're like just single, not doing anything, especially when they want to build themselves or build a business or whatever it is. But you did it with a partner. So I want to hear how that experience was, and I want to know, would you say, I don't know if, basically your whole business experiences during the time you were with your partner. So I want to know, how was that experience, business-wise? Because you probably have had a lot of days as well where you're like, I can't come home right now. I know I said I would come now, but
So again, it goes back to your partner being flexible and being willing to compromise. So obviously, if you live a selfish life of making your business more important than your partner, they'll realize, and you will not be giving them what they need. So you need to understand that if you have a day where you said you're going to be home and then you're not going to be home and there was something that came up, first of all, communicate, be honest, make up for it. You know, you need to understand that was a sacrifice they made for you because you weren't there on time or you guys had other plans. They sacrifice, they compromise. So it's now the ball's in your court, and although it can be stressful, you're trying to grow your business as well. You need to understand that you need to press pause at some point and compromise and sacrifice and return that to your partner. So I would say if you have the right wife or partner, again, it can be something really amazing because they can support you. They can be there for the stressful times, they can calm you. They can help you also just talk through things. You know, if you need to get things off your chest, and sometimes you need to just talk through stuff for you to also kind of come to a realization of what the right decision would be. So if you have the right partner, it can be something really great. And there's that other expression behind every successful man is a strong woman. You know, and there's a lot to be said about that. So if you have the right partner, it can be great, but as well, there can be times if you realize, I want to commit myself to growing my business, doing that, then it might not be the right time for you to commit for a relationship. And that's also fine because you're being honest with yourself. And you also have to be honest with whoever you might be interested in, or if someone is interested in you, you must tell them, listen, now's just not the right time because I won't be able to give you the attention you need. So I think, that's kind of my response to that.
Communication. Maybe I need to start putting more effort into this kind of life, because for me, when I think back, it's like I'm not even that old, and I think I've never known a person where I would say I can make this person more important than my goals at this point. But I guess maybe I'm still too young. Life hasn't hit me yet, and of course, besides my family and all that. But to think that, Yeah, I should definitely think about it as well, because I can see the importance in a partnership. I mean, it can be helpful, and you probably gain someone that's understanding, that sees what you're doing, and when things are going bad, you still have somewhere to go and say, oh, it was a tough day, and you get your little nice cuddles.
No, it's true, and also they temper you in the sense of, if you get tunnel vision, which can happen in business, you're set on going this direction, you're trying everything to achieve it. Often you're missing things as well. And having someone who is on the outside, who is close enough to understand what you're going through, but who can view something from a wider, and that can be somebody like a really good friend as well. It can be a family member. But if you're married, you have that person who's in your life, and they can look at things, and they can also honestly tell you if they feel like, even if they're not fully involved in your business or how it works, they can press pause for you, and they can say, listen, have you just thought about this, or have you noticed that these are the things that are going past? And they just help you to kind of reset, get a wider perspective again, and then see if you must carry on, if you must change direction.
Okay. Yeah, and I think since you said you're Christian, right? And I think there's even a verse in the Bible. I don't know if these are the exact words, but when choosing a partner, choose someone you would have beside you during war. It's basically it. Would you say that's what you have right now?
No, 100%.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's perfect. And in addition, I think, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
so thank you for sharing that with us. To move on forwards as we're getting closer to the end of everything, what I like to have with this podcast as well is so that when the people are watching, so they can leave with something they can say, I definitely learned from this episode. So there are youngsters out there, they want to start their own business. Maybe you want to get into social media marketing. What would you say to them, to the youngsters that are starting out, or even, it doesn't matter the age, anyone that's starting in their business, from what you've learned, what can you share with the world? So
there's a saying that I've learned from a really great creative director. He is involved with a business called The Future. An agency I really admire. And he got it from somebody else, but he said, done is better than perfect. And what that basically means is complete what you've started, even if it isn't where you want it to be yet, and learn from it and grow and move forward. And the same goes for just starting. If you've got this goal, you have this dream, you want to start something, just start. Because as long as that dream is a dream and hasn't begun, what's the use? But if you've started, you've taken that first step. And every time you take the second step, take the third step, you're moving closer and closer toward your goal. So just start. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into business. There's a lot of thought, research that you have to do beforehand. Don't just go into something without having any knowledge about who your competition is, what should your product be, what are your key selling points, how you're differentiating yourself from the market. You need to do that. 100%, it's part of business, otherwise you're going to fail. But once you've taken those steps, don't overthink it, and just start. And learn from your failures, learn from your successes, and move forward.
Okay, that's great. And now I'm going to ask this more some advice for me, because I'm in the marketing industry as well. And I remember the first time when I started, and the first time I got to a point where I think it was like maybe 25,000 rand, 25,000 million dollars, and it was for like 3 consecutive months in a row. And I was like, you know what? Let me just add on to this. And the plan was to add on to it, but I realized it was like, I don't know what happened. I just got comfortable with this smaller amount, and of course, when you're in high school, it's like $25,000 million. You're doing better than most of your friends, right? And somehow I just lost it. That little taste of everything, and then just went down again. And I think a lot of people might have experienced that as well. Obviously, now I'm at a different stage in my life. That was a while ago, but what advice would you give to someone that has tried something you get comfortable a little bit with what you've gotten, and things turn sideways. What would you say to them?
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I would say, first of all, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions.
Yeah.
You need to ask yourself, was what you were doing something that you were passionate enough about? Because if you got comfortable with what you were doing, would you have let it drop? Then another question would be, if the answer to that is yes, I was super passionate about it, just was circumstance. Another question I would ask myself is, was it something out of my control that had caused that? Because it can be really demoralizing. As I said, going back to, you're expecting a project to come through, doesn't come through. Or you're expecting to retain a client to re-sign and they don't re-sign.
Yeah.
These things happen. Your business will have ups and downs. Do you just accept defeat? Or are you willing to push through and just see yourself grow from that and say, you know what, I did do this, it was a success, I can do it again, and I can do it even better. And then once you've also said yes to that question and said, I'm gonna carry on, I'm gonna do the next project even better, then you need to ask yourself how. And set yourself an implementation strategy and run with it. Because again, starting off, you will have successes, you will have failures, it's a guarantee. No one has a perfect business career, you know. But
everyone is faking it.
Yeah, no, social media is a lie, you know?
That's true.
So no one will have a perfect streak.
Yeah.
And there will be times when you're down in the dumps, you've got to reevaluate and push harder and keep on going and say, okay, this was a success. This was an interim failure, but before that, that was a success. Let me take that knowledge that I've got from there and implement it again. So I think it's very much about your drive. You need to understand your drive.
Okay.
If you don't have a drive for what you were doing, you need to understand it's okay if you want to try something else. And I think a lot of people also, they get guilty about starting something, realizing I'm not that passionate about it actually. But then they're like, I'm already halfway committed, let me just carry on. And they kind of get comfortable with where they are, but they don't have this hunger anymore. That's okay if you're okay with that. But I personally believe that rather say, you know what, this is not for me. And pursue something that you're really hungry for. Because in the long run, you'll thank yourself. And today is the best day to start.
What if I'm just hungry for money?
Well, then you need to understand what is your best way of achieving an income. What sacrifices are you willing to make? You know, what suits your lifestyle? And these are really a lot of introspective questions that no one will have the answer for except you. And sometimes people need to try 3, 4, 5, 6 things before they find their niche. But when you find your niche, you'll know it, you know. So you need to kind of like work towards that.
I keep wanting to ask him more and more questions because now I want to know, like, do you think social media has gotten more important than it should be?
I think people misunderstand social media because social media started with people posting pictures of themselves onto the internet so that their friends and family can stay up to date with them. That's not what we're using platforms for anymore. You know, yes, sure, we are using them to an extent for that, but that is not the primary purpose for the platforms anymore. For some people it is, but if you go to Meta or if you go to TikTok, what they're trying to do now is no longer catering for those individuals. They're catering for a different market. They've infiltrated the education, entertainment industries. And if you start realizing the power of the platform for what it actually works really well for, you'll understand what you need to use it for. So sure, you can post a picture of yourself on Facebook, but if you are obviously addicted to using platforms, it's a different story because that's what the platforms now try and do. They try and hook your attention. But on the business component, I would say it is still by far the most engagement driven platform out there when you compare it to other marketing channels. And from a marketing component, it's really interesting for us to explore the future possibilities of it. And I don't think it's more important than it should be. It is the way forward. It's going to develop, it's going to change. You know, before Apple came out with their Apple Vision and Oculus was developing and AR kind of became a thing, I was always saying when I first saw the first VR sets that I can see myself walking through town and no longer having actual billboards in place, but rather having digital ads coming up as I'm hitting certain places in town. And they pin geographically, but they're augmented reality. So you see this thing pop up on the side, you no longer have to have any physical advertising. You'll be able to have so much information at your fingertips. With augmented reality, you can sell layers upon layers upon layers of information on top of the real world. And you can target the right individuals, you can target specific niche markets, niche audiences with that. I mean, imagine a super underground club only looking for a specific target group of people. The door is so hidden, no one knows where it is. But you have this headset, you're walking and the right person gets the ad to pop up and said, you know, just follow here, you'll get in, you know? It's so powerful. We're just stuck to devices in our hand now. But in the future, this device is going to be nothing compared to what we'll have. So we need to stay at the forefront of it. At the same time, on the consumer side, yes, you need to be careful because you get individuals like you and me who are trying to target you. and as the consumer, you have to decide, you know, am I allowing these platforms to become more important than actual real relationships, actual real life?
Yeah, because I find it as well, I find it crazy how nowadays you can literally sit 6-7 hours on the phone, especially with teenagers nowadays. It's normal to them. In 10 years, it's going to be normal to spend like 9 hours on your phone. And I'm thinking, where the hell did you get 9 hours to spend on your phone the whole day? Because 9 hours, that's literally the same amount of time you sleep. It's this digital real estate and everything. It's crazy.
Look, it's also, if you think about it, right, it's progression. 50 years ago, people would spend hours talking on a phone. Right? They'd ring and they'd find the right person, they'd speak for hours. Today, I hate answering phone calls. I ask myself, why can't people just send me a WhatsApp message or a voice note? And then I can get back to them if it's super important. Like, call me if if it's an emergency, right? But that's the progression, because now everyone's like, everything's so fast paced. A phone call is tedious. You want to like scan through, okay, that's the point. You can action on it. Is that healthy? Probably not, because it adds so much extra stress to your life. Because now you can do 100 things in a day where you could have in the past only done 10. And that's probably why people today are also just generally more stressed, generally less happy. So you need to control that on your personal end, and you have to understand to what extent are these benefits, these very useful technologies becoming harmful to me. And so I think there again, from a human aspect, from a very like consumer level standpoint, you need to also understand that, you know, the power of the eyes, it's dangerous. So you need to be careful, because when it comes to marketing, advertising, it's psychology, and you have to be careful, because you will be hooked. You will be hooked.
Okay, perfect. Now I'll ask you the last two questions, and then we can finish up. So the first question is going to be, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Okay. In 5 years, I see myself basically doing more mentoring. I want to educate, I want to train and inspire individuals.
I'll be first on the line.
But I personally think, from my standpoint, that Namibian businesses, and any small businesses actually, have such a great opportunity to grow, but they need the right guidance and advice. And you can fast track that with a mentor. 100%, because the mentor can tell you from their life experiences, you know, from their mistakes. So you can fast track a lot of that. At the same time, I think when it comes to running a business and an agency, what I've found is Namibia has so much talent. Namibia has so much potential in terms of individuals, creatives.
That's true.
It feels to me like the private sector, people trying to infiltrate the private sector. It's a challenge if you don't go the conventional route, and the conventional route is get a degree, get a full-time job, be employed. But is the employment system really the way? Always. I'm not saying it's not, but is it always the way? And if you decide not to go that route, it is far more challenging to actually start up. And there have been a lot of these startup incubation hubs. There have been a lot of these startup programs. But I often feel that because they start off, there's this like massive hype, but then they've never actually given the key to succeeding long term. They told, okay, this is how you start, here's a bit of money, get your business off the ground, and then it's like, cool, now you're on your own. Whereas I think there's a lot more to be said about having platforms where you can communicate with these individuals, where they can ask questions, where they can collaborate more, where you can learn from each other's experiences and knowledge. And that's the other thing in Namibia, everyone's like in their own lane. Like the creatives are all in their own lane. But if we speak more, if we're a bit more free, if we're helping each other, if we're building structures which allow us as an industry, in the creative industry, to be respected more, we're helping each other. And the same goes for small businesses, for startups. Collaborating, networking, growing together is the way.
All right, perfect. That's quite something. And I think I would love to see you doing some coaching, and and I think that's definitely something we need more of, because I can think for myself as well. It's like when you're starting in the marketing industry. I mean, I had one mentor, of course, he really helped me out. I mean, I learned a lot, and I realized how much faster you can grow as well with a mentor. But for other things, I think this sharing of knowledge with people that have already experienced something, I think that would be very useful. And please do it. I'm asking you, as for all the people that are also standing behind me. I think it would definitely be quite something. And our last question, not a question, but now to the people that have been listening to you, your message and everything, what do you want them to leave knowing today? The message that you want to push out there for people?
I would say, if you are somebody who is starting up, who's interested in business, educate yourself, number one. Take the time, invest in yourself, because many people have a dream. Many people also just expect things to fall on their lap. It doesn't work like that. It's not that easy. So invest in yourself, put in the work, but honestly, go for it. Because going back to the quote which you mentioned, fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. That facade of this major barrier of entry for starting a business it's there, it looks big, but once you've started, you realize, you can grow small, but you can grow, and you can actually do something that you're passionate about. So I think tying everything back together, invest in yourself, put in the work, put in the time, but just start, because it'll really teach you a lot about yourself. And even if after that whole process you realize, I'm not an entrepreneur, I prefer working a full-time job, you'll be so much happier that you've went through that experience than sitting 20 years later in your full-time job and saying, you know what, I should have started that business. So I think that's basically my takeaway for everyone. Just give it a go.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Tim. And I think there's a lot to learn from this episode. So I'll go watch it when I get home. And I really appreciate it. Nothing else to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great being on your podcast. Thanks for the invite.
All right, perfect.
All right. Thanks, man.